In the spirit of reconciliation, I acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island peoples today. Welcome to Totally Lit, the podcast celebrating reading, writing and creating literature. I'm your host, KyGarvey. Thank you for listening. Edwina Shaw, welcome to Totally Lit.
Hi, Kai. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me. This is now your second time as a guest with me.
It is, and I think
you
I
were
was
one of my very first.
Oh, I was the first. Yay, I won because now you're an award-winning podcast.
Apparently, yes.
That's correct.
All those years ago, at the launch of your previous Joe Bjork-Peterson book, I came to see you and said,
yeah, that was 2019, I think. My first book, though, I had Thrill Seekers and In the Dark of Night long before that.
Only the first book you've had out since you've known me.
Yes.
But now there is another one, Dear Madman.
Yes.
Would you like to tell me all about your book?
So, Dear Madman is based on a tragedy that's haunted my family for generations. It's the story of how in 1911, my great-grandfather unwittingly hired a dangerously disturbed man who had a history of crimes against women, and he hired him under a false name without any knowledge of this to work on the family farm. And he had 4 young daughters, a son, and 4 daughters between 14 and 4 when the very dangerously disturbed man arrived on the farm. So it's taken me a long, long time to do this one. This story I've carried since my nana first told me about the murder of her sister when I was just 7 years old. So all of us girls, my sisters were told, my girl cousins were told, my mother and my aunt, Nana's children were both told, but even her sons didn't know. And boy cousins don't know. I think it was like she was always telling us cautionary tales. Like
that's exactly what I was about to say.
The story of Hook and Peck who didn't listen to their mother and went out when the hawk was circling and the hawk got him. They were always a bit gruesome, her stories. But yeah, this was definitely a warning tale about being careful. And actually, I only realised that really recently. I just thought she needed to share it and let us know about her sister and bear witness for her sister, because she still had a beautiful picture. I wish I had it still. I don't know what's happened to it Anyway, yeah, it used to hang above the bed in the spare room, and my sister and I used to be there sleeping under the picture of the little girl who looked like a fairy, beautiful little girl. And so I really felt...
Was she a little girl when she was murdered?
Yeah, she was a child when she was murdered.
Have I just given a spoiler away?
No, they're all children. There are 4 girls. So I don't know until the murder who it is.
Right. What town is it based in?
So it's set in... my great-grandfather won a ballot for the stolen lands of the Gittabul and the Yurrkarapu people out in the Lockyer Valley. And he won a prime lot out at Lock Rose, which is sort of between Laidley and Forest Hill in that whole region of Plainland. So when you're driving towards Toowoomba, there's that big Plainlands pub. It's fancy now, and there's a shopping centre. In those days, there was just a pub, and that's the pub my great-grandfather went to. So it was all out there. It was a really big area of German migration. There were a lot of German early settlers out there. So it must have been a wet season when they saw it, because when it's wet, it's, of course, beautiful, green, lush paddocks and really rich soil. It is, Queensland's fruit and veggie basket, the Lockyer Valley. So it's all those plain lands that were excellent for farmers. That's where it was set. Those... I don't know if other people feel as the sort of creepy, eerie vibes of the Lockyer Valley when you drive out there, but for me, they're certainly there.
If you heard about that story when you were 7, did you have that feeling in that area prior to knowing what had happened?
I think I did. because I also had recurring dreams when I was very young, and one of them involved me taking a train out to Rosewood, which is the last stop now on that line, and walking out trying to get home. There was some sort of genetic memory. Yeah, something there anyway. Yeah. But we never ever went to the grave.
Wow.
Of course, uh, hers was not the only murder out there. Other children were found drowned in a lake on the way from Forest Hill, I think it was. And then also, of course, there is the infamous Gatton murders that happened in 1898 of the two sisters and brother. And the girls outraged and so on, and the police really bungled that. So there was still that real feeling that you could not trust that the police were going to get the bad guys in the Lockyer Valley as well. And there were a lot of bad guys. That's what I discovered in my research, that once the convict settlement left from Brisbane in 1850, we were left with a labour vacuum. So what they did was go to the poorhouses, the workhouses in England, and to then the poor illiterate farmers who were struggling, and offered free passage.
Mm.
And the promise of this golden life, you'll own land, you'll eat meat every day, all of that, and brought them all out here. And for a very, very few, that was true.
Yeah.
But, if you're importing people from poor houses, they are already very troubled souls from, genetic inheritance of poverty and difficulty. So what they actually imported was a lot of very troubled souls who couldn't thrive at home and couldn't thrive here either. And Joe's father was trying. I think he was a lovely man. The neighbours all loved and approved of him. He was a good man, a non-drinker. But he died. I just gave something away.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, because he was working, I think he'd just paid off the land that he had worked really, really hard because he was a really good worker as well. Yeah, but
A
he
hard
couldn't.
life to finally pay off something and then also reach the end of your life at the same time.
Yeah, yes. And the day he died, Joe's mother gave birth to their seventh child. The same day.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
That was a crazy find at the archive. It involved a lot of research doing this book as well. 4 years.
Because I think you may have even mentioned this project to me the first time I met you. And I think that would have been 2017 or 18.
Yeah, I've already been working on it 7 or 8 years by then. I I only wrote the first draft in 2014. I'd done a lot of pre-writing and a lot of research, and as you know, I journal every day, my 3 pages. So a lot of the memoir voice that is now threaded through the recreation of events, that's done in 2 voices, the voice of the murderer in first person and the omniscient voice of the family, because I wanted to give every child a voice.
Mhm.
So my memoir voice is very much informed by my journals through that research process.
This is a story about your own family history. How have your extended family felt about you working on the project? Has everybody been supportive of that?
As with any memoir, it's all subjective.
Mm.
And this story belongs to everybody who was told it.
Yep.
In my family. So my youngest sister is a writer too. My Tashi, who's the closest to me in age now, she's an artist. So we all have the right to tell our version of it. My mum and her sister was Auntie Jean first recorded my great aunt's version of the story, which she only began telling once she reached 100, and then for the rest of her life until she died at 103 or 104, kept repeating. We all heard it then many, many times from her. But my mother and my auntie were not happy. And Mum always said that Nana would be furious. Whenever when I was a kid trying to write the story or drawing pictures of little girls with all the blood in their hair, she'd always say, whatever you do, don't show Nana.
Yep.
And like, I'm just trying to make sense of it. I just got to make sense of it. And for me, that's how I make sense of things. I write
Yep.
because it's too much for me to hold in my brain. And for this senseless crime, and it really is a senseless crime, I had to find a way to create meaning. So, but my mother does provide the antagonistic force in my memoir thing, my memoir stream, because, yeah, she was very opposed to it. She and my auntie did come to the launch, and I think they're both okay now. I think they're both okay. Yeah. My mother has read many, many versions of the drafts, and now she is included in the story. So we have that opposition that, no, this is our secret, as our previous generations have been. The English, I don't know, maybe it's many cultures and it's just generational, the burying. I think when generations go through a lot of stuff, they just bury it because it's too hard to keep going forward with having to deal with it. And they didn't have any, self-helpy or yoga back then. So,
100 years ago was
mm,
very different to now. Like death was all around you. So your husband could be with you one day and gone the next. Your children could be well one day and the next. So death and loss, I don't think anyone felt it any less, but the way it was dealt with, though, is different because you would never get up off the floor if you were always in grief and
leaving the
suffering
next
because
loss.
it's
Yeah.
every day things like that are happening.
Yes, but not to your immediate family.
Mm,
Not to your immediate family. And in those days too, they had more rituals that they were still observed, like wearing black actually served to draw attention to, this person is grieving. They're not their complete selves right now. Don't invite them to parties. Be kinder to them. Be understanding because this person is suffering. And because that suffering was so widespread, many, especially, with childbirth and high mortality rates, especially with women,
mm.
you know, we're the ones that carry the child the full term and raise that child until the child dies. Yeah, it's those losses. So women in particular, I think, bore the brunt of that. Men had their wars.
I've actually commented recently to my husband because we are now at an age where we're losing our own parents and our friends are losing their parents. And it seems like there's such a short period of time you're allowed to mourn. And it's like, oh, only 1 or 2 days off work. Only then you're just like getting back on with it.
Yes, bereavement leave. You're lucky if you get a day.
But the person who was central to your world, as especially as a child, as you're growing up, your parents are now gone forever, and you're meant to just shirk it off and walk forward. I go,
Yeah.
I'm the adult now, and I'm not sure if because we've lost some of that ritual and the way that we've grieved in the past, it almost feels like we're just brushing off like such an important figure in our life.
And I don't think the modern concept brushes any emotion off. And the medicalization of if you're still feeling sad after 3 months is actually really dangerous.
Mm,
And just, and it doesn't matter what age you are. When you lose a parent, you lose a parent.
mm,
And it hurts. And for a lot of people, it's their first encounter of grief when they are middle-aged, losing a parent. That hasn't been so for me or many people.
mm.
We actually think you're lucky that you have had them that long and that you get to keep them and you get to mourn as an adult so that you have the emotional intelligence. But we still need time. I have written where is it? If anyone needs it out there, my guide through grief.
Mm.
I've done enough grieving. What I know about is healing grief and maybe just healing my own. But the tools and everything that I learned about healing grief in my 36 years of dealing with a lot of grief, that's all in the book. My yoga techniques, recipes, creative techniques, writing exercises, everything like that. just to help people because, when we were kids losing our father young, there was no guidebook. So it was a real point of connection for me when I learnt that the murderer, Joe Frisbee, this guy, when I learnt about the death of his father and all of those kids, because I had that similar experience and I was the biggest sister and he was the littlest boy. And our fates were very different, mainly because there was no welfare. There was no government support for women, for mothers. So when your husband died, those children were classed as orphans. And unless you had a wealthy parent or somebody living close by who was willing to support you, grandparents, somebody who was going to help, you were lost. You were completely at the mercy of the elements. And so that's why those kids, as happened to still many, many families all the way up and still happens today, if mum can't cope, and I think that's what happened in the murderer's case, his mother couldn't cope, they just were taken to an orphanage. And as you know, I've worked with the Forgotten Australians here who were in orphanages in Queensland in the 50s, 60s, 70s and 80s. So I can only imagine how horrific the orphanages were back in the 1870s when Joe was first put in as a 4-year-old, only 4.
Wow, it's tiny to be in an orphanage.
I know when you think of your kid who's 4 or how big you were, and to go into those places, the first thing they do is separate siblings. I don't know why they do it. It's an extremely cruel practice, but that they did do it. And you weren't even allowed to wave to your siblings. And every day, I think there was a lot of physical and sexual abuse, but every day they were told they were stupid, worthless, gutter, trash.
And you see the results of what comes of that treatment.
Yes, well, but look at my Forgotten Australians again. The ones that I see who are doing creative writing as they're older, these are the thrivers. They're not just the survivors. And also, I think that there's something else. There's something else that comes into play. It's not just nurture. Make a killer, you need, yes, because I did a lot of research into this, trying to get into his head. What makes a killer? What makes us do something as absolutely abhorrent as chase after a small child and kill them? What is it? So I was trying to figure that out. What it is a combination of brutality as a child, neglect, but also it's some little seed of something else. So for my murderer, he had epilepsy from an early age, which developed into an epileptic psychosis. They used to put all people with epilepsy in mental hospitals, but now they know that most people are okay, and especially these days with medication, thank goodness. But some people, it does trigger psychosis. What I learned, to my delight, was that a symptom of that psychosis can be graphomania, which is that compulsive writing.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so after he killed the girl, he sat down and compulsively wrote the letters to the girl's mother that gave me the title. He started each one Dear Madman because he couldn't spell very well because he wasn't educated in the orphanage.
Did he express any regret in the letters, or is that giving
Yes,
away
there
too
is.
much to the listeners?
Well, I'll have to write. No, I think it's okay to say you can read the notes in 2 ways. Yes, as genuine remorse. He says things like, I'm sorry the thought ever entered my head. But also there's another one where he's trying to put the blame on somebody else and say, oh, no, it wasn't, my alias name. It was me the whole time, not him. Don't blame him. He was crazy. But I also think I really think that he knew what he was doing at the time. I think he was out for revenge, but in a demented, sort of crazy way. And he also had an intellectual impairment, I think probably caused by the epilepsy and his maltreatment as a child.
Was there anything surprising that you uncovered during your research of the story?
Yes. Well, the first thing was about those imported labourers and where they'd come from. I hadn't known about that. We know so little, actually, about the true history of our country. When I was growing up, it was all this golden age and all the explorers and all of that. We didn't know about the absolute wars that went on with our First Nations people and about the horrors that they experienced, which, when you multiply the intergenerational trauma of what happened to my family with one murder, no wonder, no wonder our First Nations people have struggled because it's an awful, awful load that they're bearing. But I think the most surprising thing that I found was the ending. So I'm not going to tell you that because I knew somehow, and that's why I did a lot of work tracing his descendants so that I could find them because I needed their permission to access his mental health files. I needed to prove my descendant from the murder victim, and I needed to find somebody who could prove their relationship to him. And I did, and we applied for it, and I finally got it. And I'd hoped to find more notes of confession and so on. But what I found was something different. And what I found too, and what I got when I was writing the first draft, was his photo. I didn't have a paper image of him before that. I just had newspaper reprints of very bad photos.
How did you feel when you first saw that photo?
Ecstatic because I'd been waiting for it for so long. But also the look on his face. He doesn't look mean anymore. He doesn't, to me, and even my mother, he looks soft. There's something about him that looks a bit like an old, kind Labrador. And it gave me more empathy for him rather than less. But when I was writing, I had him up for a while. But when I got to the murder scene, and there was no way I could keep writing with his face up because I was, very angry with him.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Through all this exploration of the story and your family, is there anything that you have discovered about yourself through this journey?
I think mostly I have been successful in freeing myself of the need to tell this story anymore. Because I've been, thinking about it my whole life and trying to make sense of it my whole life. And it wasn't really until I held the book that I realized it's gone. It's now in something I can put down and leave. It's a very freeing feeling. And I've had to be much braver and less private than I actually like to be in this. There's a lot of my own truth. And yeah.
I was intrigued. You just said before that you have empathy for the perpetrator. Did
Yes.
that take a long time to come to?
From the first moment I read that what happened to his father, I had that point of connection. And I'm just one of those people that I'm always looking for the good in whoever I meet. I've worked in prisons, I've met these people, and one-on-one, even people I don't ever want to see out on the street that I know are dangerous and that I know are psychopathic and dangerously violent, talking with them one-on-one, I can understand where that person has come from. I can understand that they've been shaped by their family and that no one chooses to be a violent psychopath. It's like, everything else. You're born. You are born, and then if you've got psychopathic tendencies and you have a great home life, you end up being Donald Trump. Well, maybe not, but if you grow up maybe with money, you grow up to be Donald because he's so psychopathically violent. But otherwise, you might just end up a CEO of a company. It's that combination. Yeah.
I watched a documentary, I can't remember which streaming service it was, but it was about the TV show To Catch a Predator that's in the States, where they invite men to a house where they think they're meeting up with a young girl or boy, and then they film them and go, surprise, you're actually going to be arrested now. And the filmmaker that made that actually, the end discloses that he is a victim of a pedophile. And the reason he's making the documentary is because he wants to discover why those people do what they do.
Mhm.
And the answer actually at the end is they don't know why themselves. There is no answer to why some of
Yeah,
these things happen. And I think a lot when you ask someone why they hurt someone else, they can't articulate it. And
yes,
so us trying to get a sense of meaning out of it, sometimes there is no meaning as to why it has occurred, except
yeah,
for that it has occurred.
that's
Um,
right. They don't have an awareness. Yeah, they don't have that awareness in themselves. I think Joe did at points, and I think he did have sincere remorse
mm,
sometimes. But not all the time. You can forgive the person, but not their actions.
yeah.
No. The action of somebody hurting any child, any other person, is still very wrong, and something has to be done about it. But we need to understand the perpetrators and reach the perpetrators before they become perpetrators.
Mm,
So, if Joe's mother had had support, if women today who were struggling with children on their own, so if they've got income, it does make it a little easier. But, you're feeding a whole lot of kids on what we get these days for a
mm,
single mum's pension. It's very, very difficult. We need people going into homes, not just the overworked, poor old, docs people. There need to be a whole lot more of them. We need to make sure that families at risk have support in home from early on. And that's how women would fix the problem, not, adult crime, adult, I'll
yeah.
leave out the word time. Mm.
Mm. It's it does feel like some of the issues just keep cycling through the centuries, though, and I think we're facing a time at the moment where the world is feeling a little bit like it's closing in on us. Everything is costing a lot of money and there's a lot of conflict out in the world and things are getting tougher and tougher. And as that stress weighs on everybody, that's when these kind of things start bubbling up again, that there's more violence, there's more stress, there's more anxiety, and
Yeah.
people start not behaving well to each other. And I feel like we're in that space again.
So everybody just needs to calm down
Yes.
and go and
Take
sit
a
at nature
breath. Yes.
and go and listen to a river and turn off their machines. That's the main thing. Get the machine out of your face because it's making you unwell in many ways.
Mm,
And, I can see positive. I see that this is a time of, yes, great essential change for humanity. This is patriarchal capitalism's last gasp. I was in Cambodia during the last gasp of the Khmer Rouge.
mm,
So I know that when a system is under pressure and they know it's their last, they do everything, that they can. That's when they really go crazy bombing bridges and kidnapping people.
mm.
So I think that's very much what's happening, especially in America. I mean, we would hope that Australia can stay out of it. A little disappointed there. Yeah. But
Don't
yeah,
watch the news. You'll be disappointed.
yeah, I haven't watched the news in about 20 years now. So more because my husband had to come home and tell me about 9/11. Yeah, that's the way to stay sane in the modern
I
world.
think so. It does kind of feel at the moment that everything is coming from everywhere. And it's very easy to be worried about what's happening in the world at the moment as well.
And
Um,
all that fear, I mean, if you want me to go really woo-woo, all that fear is only adding to the fear bubble that feeds the darkness.
yeah.
What we need is more people sending out peace. In order to send out peace, you just have to feel peace. So the more peace you can bring to yourself, the more peace that will be felt in the whole world. We are all one cell. The whole world is one cell in a microcosm of the universe. We are tiny specks of whatever is the interior of a cell. We're tiny little atoms. So each of our atoms needs to be sending peace.
We were discussing before we came online about anxiety. I sometimes worry I'm like a little butterfly of anxiety over here, causing a tidal wave somewhere else in the world.
No, you don't have to worry about that. But just for yourself, I mean, my yoga teacher, last time I went to see him, we were talking about, I asked, how can we help the world? Because I was trying to shine peace, trying to sort of blow the bad guys apart with rays of peace. And all that did was really, I think, contribute to my burnout badly.
Yep.
His advice was come back to yourself, bring peace to yourself, and that's the best help you can do for the world.
Yeah, I agree. On the weekend, I had a very big weekend and I thought I had coped with it very well, didn't get too anxious. But then we went to a shopping centre on Sunday and I was just paying for an item I bought and I handed over my card to pay and my hands were shaking terribly. And I was like, isn't that interesting? In myself, I'm not feeling any worries or anxiety in this moment, yet my body is telling me, you've been holding it in all weekend. Now it's
Yes,
coming out everywhere.
yes. Watch out, Kai, because, that was me last year. Woohoo! Another flight off to another. I got pretty tired. I knew I was, because we actually, we go into adrenal mode and we're just acting in adrenal mode. We feel fine because that's the mode we're in.
Mm.
Our true mode is me sitting in my rocking chair out the front. It's me sitting by the river listening to the rapids, much slower. The whole world has gone so fast at the pace of our lives with all these time-saving devices that actually strip off us of authentic time, doing what helps us connect to being human, actually, like the preparation of food, like the digging in the garden. There's so much that we can return to and feel much better in ourselves if we return to some of those, throw away some of your time-saving devices and, cook
Now,
something.
you employ a lot of those techniques at your write and relax retreats, back to front.
What is that? Relax and Write retreats and also the transformational writers retreats that I run with Kirsten all around the world. So we do some gentle movement in the morning, some yoga. I incorporate a lot of energy practices these days, much gentler as I'm getting, I'm an old yogi of 34 years. My knees aren't up to doing Ashtanga anymore. So much gentler energy practices for me, but Kirsten likes the boot camp. So that's great. You've got a bit of taste of both worlds. And then we do also in the evenings, we do guided breathing. So just some simple breathing techniques. So for people who perhaps aren't aware of a simple breathing technique to help reduce anxiety, just breathe in for a count, 2, 3, hold, breathe out for double that count. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Even just coming into your body and breathing down to the bottom of your undies. When you breathe out, you'll notice that your shoulders go down. So it's
Edwina is forcing me to relax.
forcing you to relax. So even when you're really stressed, if you just stop and breathe in, breathe out, notice the shoulders.
Mm.
With every breath you can do that if you're if you're not busy.
I could listen to you
Stop.
forever doing that. The tone of your voice just shifts and then the breathing comes and it just really brings my heightened anxiety down. It's lovely.
Lots of meditations on my YouTube channel, Kai, and everybody.
I do
That
listen to some of them sometimes.
just to help get you in the non-critical mind, but there are some just for peace, some for healing as well. I think the peace one, I think I did it during
You've got a
COVID.
little peace bird
Yeah,
around your neck.
that's the picture for the peace meditation. So that's what we can do, is listen to meditations like that and
Mm.
gently, gently send some peace into the world, but mostly focusing on creating peace in our own hearts and returning joy to the center of our hearts. Fear is actually, the kryptonite for fear is joy, because you can't feel joy and fear at the same time. You can feel love and fear at the same time, which is Aristotle and the suspense motif for writing narratives. But you can't feel fear and joy at the same time. So be as happy as you can in your life.
Mm.
And
I like the
that's
sound
how
of
we get the bastards.
that. So your retreat was the very first writing thing I ever did, like other than my Bachelor of Arts degree. The first event I ever went to where I identified as a writer was your retreat, and
That was an
it was
early one.
wonderful. Yeah, I think it was one of the first ones, but it was such a wonderful vibe, and just the welcoming feeling, and especially for someone who has imposter syndrome like me, where I'm like, I really would like to become a writer one day. The feeling
And
that you get
look
is,
at
oh well,
you.
actually you're already a writer. You're here. It was just, yeah, the start of the journey for me. So it was really a wonderful place to come to and just feel like all of the other writers there were welcoming and encouraging. And you've had some great writers come along to your retreats and then
Oh,
shoot
gosh.
off to
Yeah.
become published authors.
Yes, and published authors who are published anyway, just coming to write. So
Yes.
Nick Mottram and Fiona Robertson have come. Kirsten Pills was one of my retreaters, and I did an edit for her as well. And that's how we met and ended up doing the retreats together, because she is a great teacher too, and
Mm.
she a combination of yoga and writing as well. Yeah, so and it's been a great joy in my life, which I don't think, if Dear Madman had gotten published in 2014 when it first went to acquisitions and fell at the last hurdle, breaking my heart, I wouldn't have started the retreats in
Mm.
2017, and I would have missed out on meeting so
Yes.
many
Imagine what a different
incredible women
path
to do that.
that
Yeah.
could have been.
So,
I
you can't complain. I'm sorry, other writers out there, don't complain too much when you're getting rejected, because you might just be finding, your tribe. Uh,
Yes,
there
so
might be
true.
some sideways route. Yeah.
So now you've got a bit of work ahead of you with promotions. You want to share a bit of what you're planning?
Well, because I've had such bad burnout, which was in large part to do with my hectic schedule and 16 flights last year,
It's a lot of
including
flights.
6 internationals. So yes, I'm doing Books at Stones, 18th of April. I've got a great gig. I'm really excited because it's at the Police Museum and it's at the Watch House. So I haven't
It's
been in
cool.
the building since well, I was there in the Watch
You
House.
went to the watch house.
So that's April 28th. I'm hoping to do an event at Rosetta's soonish, by the end of the month, but otherwise it will be later. And now that my health is recovering and I feel up to maybe doing another flight, I'll do Sydney and Melbourne events as well, because I have lots of friends there.
Amazing. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
And are you having a rest from novel writing, or are you just going to now think of
Yeah, at the
something else to
moment,
write about?
I'm just having a rest, resting. Well, not really having a rest, because I'm back teaching at the University of Queensland. I'm teaching short story there, and there's weekly marking. So, yeah, not really resting, and I'm still doing edits because, before publication, chop sentences, cut words. After publication, chop sentences, cut words.
Mm.
It's the same. I still have to make a living. Yeah.
And you did do a wonderful project, Queensland, that came out last year. Have you got anything else like that
Oh,
that you're
it's
working on?
yeah. No, I'm having a rest from those. Queensland was the straw that broke the camel's back last year on top of everything, because we did a lot of promotional events
Mm.
for that as well, and it was a lot of extra editing, and it went in a very short time frame. And yeah. But I'm very, very proud that I've helped Roddy achieve his dream of Queensland. And I do love the group of voices we brought together and the stories that they tell, because it's a very important social history. I'm very proud of my social history contribution to Queensland, actually, with Bielke Blues telling the stories from the people who were opposing Joe, and now Queensland, another oppressed group who were targeted by Joe, and to rename Queensland Queersland was
Great title.
last
Was
little.
your idea? Amazing.
No, it was Roddy's idea.
Oh, sorry, Roddy.
Yeah. Yeah, I was doing some editing for Roddy and he said, "Oh, I've got this idea." And I went, "What a great idea. Let's get on to Matthew." And Matthew made us do a grant, an application, and all of a sudden we were on like, what do you call it? On like
Donkey Kong?
On like
Is that a
Donkey
thing?
Kong. Yeah, I think that's it.
So for people who are interested in attending any of your retreats, where can they find information?
So I have a website that's been up since 2008. It's edwinashaw.com. So you can just go there to latest upcoming retreats. The information will be there. Our next one is in April, first weekend after Easter. So it's coming up pretty soon. I think we've still got one spot. If you want it, just drop me an email. There's a contact form on my website. And then the next relax and ride is August. Oh, we've got Bali, wonderful, blissful Bali, where we stay in the best place. Have you been there yet, Kai?
I've never been to Bali.
Oh my God, you would love it. We've got gorgeous open air bungalows. The water is from the spring. It's the only place in Southeast Asia I would drink water from the tap. This is our fourth one, I think. So I haven't had any issues there. It's beautiful, sweet spring water that comes out of your tap. You're showering in it. There's a beautiful stream that runs through it, and we have our own waterfall. So there's still a private bungalow left. Oh. Anyway, I was thinking it might be nice for you. And we've got one large room too. So that's shared. Yeah.
And I've got my usual questions that I ask all my guests, so I'll ask you those now. The first one is, for an emerging author that would like to take on a project like Dear Madman, do you have a tip or advice for them if they wanted to write a family history project?
Yeah, a family history project or memoir is write in scenes. There's a difference between just writing a family history where you're saying, "Oh, great grandma lived here and she did this and blah, blah," than doing what I have done, which is bringing them back to life.
Yeah.
And my best advice for all writers, new writers, because we tend to write in pure telling when we're just starting, or we mythologize things and make a sort of myth of it, is just write in scenes and write in the voice that you would use when you're talking to your best friend. So there's heaps of writing advice, as you know, on my website, edwinashaw.com. All you need to do is in the search bar, you can type in character or plot or suspense, and all related articles that I've been writing once a month for however many years that is, 18 years, comes up. So there's a real library full of writing craft articles that's totally free for you to learn from. And I've also have online course recordings that give you all the basics of writing any narrative. So that's for the fiction people. Memoirs can also do that one. But I have now a special course for life writing and memoir. That's the course recordings. They're there for you. You get worksheets with it. You get a little booklet, and at very reasonable prices because that's my people. I want to make sure that people who aren't flash with cash still have access to writing education.
Because that's a real challenge no one tells you how much money you spend becoming an author. Like all the courses and all the conferences and all the events, it can really mount up. And
it's all tax deductible. It's all tax deductible, and you can
only if you're earning any money.
You can keep your receipts for 5 years, but you just have to have an ABN and earn something through it.
Yes, yeah. Now, my next question is, Is there something about you that my listeners and your readers may find surprising about you? I'm really saying, tell me a secret, Edwina.
Oh, I suppose I'm editing at the moment a very, very sad and really well done memoir about a young girl having a child in the hospital system in 1974 as a 16-year-old,
Oh,
and her
wow.
parents organising with the hospital for them to take the baby and adopt it out without her knowledge or consent.
Oh, no.
Yes, and the way she was treated during birth and afterwards made me so, so grateful that I have had the Rolls Royce of births 3
Mm.
times. I've had home births with the loving care of a midwife who I knew and trusted, who visited me in my home every visit and stayed for an hour. My midwife for my last 2 children was, I got a craniosacral treatment and massage every visit. I mean, it is
Sounds good.
really high quality care, and people just know enough about it. If you are in trouble, the midwife does go with you to the hospital, and I knew that from a friend's experience before I took that step to home birth. But I'd also gone in through the hospital system, and I had got to speak with a lovely Dr. Death, who told me that I probably wouldn't be able to birth naturally because I was too short.
Oh,
And I
okay.
thought, well, look, my grandma and my nana were both
Mm.
shorter than me, and they popped out a whole lot of kids. My nana was born at home. I knew Grandma Fanny had done it too. So, yeah, no. So, yeah, that's maybe something people don't know about me, which is a bit controversial.
Mm. I didn't know height had too much to do with how you went through birth, to be honest.
No, because my kids are really big now.
Mm. I have 2 Vikings here, so
Yes, they're growing up beautifully, though, hey?
especially with my older son, he has this long golden red curly hair, and I say, "You look like an angel floating around." Like this, just this, he's like an archangel though, but this big giant red-headed Viking of a man. And I often just look and go, "How did I produce him?"
I know
I'm
boys
so
change so much.
short.
Our little boys turn into,
The giant, but he does get a bit cranky because his face is my exact face. Um,
it's a nice face. That's why he looks like an angel.
you
Giant.
can't predict how genetics will fall, I guess, in terms of you get some good bits from your parents and then some other bits which you wish they had kept.
Yes, and
I
the awful thing too, when your kids have difficulties and you realise, "Oh, shit, they got my anxiety,"
Yes.
or they got my you know.
Although on the weekend, because I had my event and I had to wear the theme was a night in the castle, crowns and gowns. So I had a long, lovely dress. And I'd invited my mum over to come and have a look at it before the event, and my dad had come as well. And I'm walking around the house, and I'm tripping over the bottom of the dress. And I said, "You made me too little, but too short, but too wide. You'll have to go back and try
China.
again." Oh,
You looked
gosh.
gorgeous, and you had your crown as well. I just
Yeah.
thought of something I could tell people who are grieving.
Yes.
For those who are grieving, the most freeing thing for me, and mind you, it's very hard to hear the first time you hear it. The first time my friend said it to me, I felt like, punching her in the face. So I'm
Mm.
sorry for saying this to you now, but I hope that it will just go in somewhere, and at some stage when the pain isn't acute, you'll be able to remember this seed, which is, if you can find a way to give thanks for this loss, the pain will lessen greatly. With my father, I was able to give thanks that his suffering ended because he had stomach cancer and he was
Mm.
really suffering, and we witnessed his suffering. With my brother, who had schizophrenia and killed himself, he was no longer suffering.
Mm.
With my son, it was harder, but only just this week, and it's not in the book, and I wish it was in the book. I was thinking about Allah. And then I remembered what happened to Joe when his father died and what happened to my family when my father died. And I thought, we can be grateful, actually, that it wasn't the father, because the whole family would have been imperiled.
Yeah.
So there's always, always a way. I don't know how Rose Batty does it. She can be thankful that the perpetrator died as well. At least that's a way. You've got to find some little side.
I think it's a challenge to, it's much easier to find reason and understanding when the person is an older or unwell and in pain.
Yes.
But when it is such a senseless loss, it's much harder to find the reason that
Any violence.
how do I feel thankful for this?
Yeah. Don't know.
It sounds really crazy, as I was not connected to this family at all, except for that I lived in a suburb close. But poor little Kaisha Abrahams in Sydney, who was murdered, that impacted me so much because she was such a little girl, and it distressed me in a way I'd never felt before about someone I had never met. And I was like, how can these things be happening in the world? And it impacted my life really in a great way. And then I felt very selfish about feeling those feelings as well, because it wasn't my loss in any way, really.
But you can be thankful maybe that you heard about that, because it opened up your compassion. It opened up your wanting to understand more about the world and people.
Because it was only about 2 suburbs from where we were living, and I had my little boys with me, and thinking, how would I feel if something had happened to either of my children?
I know.
And
that's why you'd want to kill them.
yes. And so then you also then look at those times when someone says, I feel empathy for this person who perpetrated this crime. It's like, oh, that's interesting that they've reached that.
Well, I don't think certainly not my great-grandparents couldn't, because I am at the safe distance of 2 generations. I'm the great-granddaughter of the parents and the granddaughter of the children. And for me, I'm very interested in how things affect children, because that's when we are shaped as children. So, yeah, I know, and it's creepy, and as I say, you have to separate the action from the person to forgive them, to have empathy with them. But it's through the understanding of what created them that can happen. But the giving thanks has to be for your own heart ease.
Yes. Well, I think that
Like forgiveness is.
just
It's
to get
not
to
them.
peace.
Yes. Yes, to get to that peace that the whole world needs now.
Because I think people often say, I just want to feel happy. But what I really think you need is to feel at peace or feel contentment, because it's not natural to be skipping around happy all the time.
No, we just need
But
to
it
feel
would be
peaceful
nice
and
to just
content.
feel like at rest a little bit, in that.
That's peace.
It is a challenge, though, I find, in writing, because to be constantly writing and achieving and submitting and putting yourself out there, there's an element of not allowing yourself peace.
Yeah, it's a very, very cruel art form, writing. I think of all art forms, we face the most rejection and criticism. Because before anyone sees anything we've done, we have to submit it and submit it and submit it. What non-writers don't know is that every acceptance may represent 30 or 40 rejections that we've had to bear before then. And then when you finally get it out, everybody can have a go at you. Whereas visual artists, they work for 12 months, they put it up on the wall. Some people buy their stuff, sometimes they don't sell stuff. I mean, I think we get to live the longest, but we also face the most criticism and the most rejection. Yeah.
I probably am revealing a little bit about my own psyche, but I was recently at my psychologist saying, why can I not feel happy with what I've achieved when, especially from where I started from at rock bottom,
Yeah.
in 10 years, I've transformed my whole life.
Yes, I'm so proud of you.
It is amazing if you look back
Yes.
and go, but it was kind of unraveling a mess I had created for myself, which I acknowledge. But I should be on top of the world, but that is not the way I'm feeling, in that I
Sometimes good
don't.
things can hit like trauma.
Mm.
And it, as we were saying before, at the launch of Dear Madman was, I think, one of the very first times in my life where I actually felt my whole body in joy. And people who know me, I'm quite a happy person. I'm a joyful person. I like to spread joy. But, and maybe it's because I'm coming out of burnout, I've forgotten what that felt like. But I was able to really feel it, and not only that, sort of congratulate myself. I think when we come up as highly sensitive, anxious, perhaps on the spectrum kids that are really high functioning and high masking, we just live in a constant state of anxiety and in our cortisol system because we're masking all the time. School was exhausting, but I was a very good girl until I wasn't. Until I got thrown out.
See, I didn't hit my rebellious years till I went to uni. So it's all through high school, I just did as I was told, followed all the
You
rules,
made it all the way. Good
got all
girl.
the way through high school, and then
Yeah.
I ran away to uni and let my hair down. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Edwina. It's always lovely to chat with you, and I'm so
Yeah.
pleased to have you as
Um,
part of my world. It's been a joy to meet you and a joy to know you.
Well, I just
And
want to feel your joy at all you've
yes,
accomplished with this podcast because
to
I am so
learn,
proud of you. And here we are
to enjoy it.
to 2026. Proud as
The
punch.
only way is up.
The only way is up, and you're going to feel it. You're going to learn to feel it. It's going to
Yeah,
happen. That is the breath.
amazing. Thank you, Edwina.
Thank you, darling.
Totally Lit is an independent podcast. You can help support us to continue to chat with wonderful Australian creatives by leaving a review on iTunes or sharing our socials with your friends. You can also make a contribution at www.buymeacoffee.com/Totally Lit. This will also help with equipment and podcasting platform fees. I love to interact with our listeners, so feel free to say hello either by email or social media at totallylitpodcast@gmail.com, or you can find me on Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn and Twitter, and now Blue Sky. I've also created a group on Facebook called the Totally Lit Writing Community. It's a space to continue the conversation and share your writing successes, events, launches and latest projects. Jump into the group and say hello. Thank you for listening to Totally Lit, and don't forget to go out into the world to read, write, create, ignite.